Hi there. So this week I wanted to show you a little bit more about the book that kind of started me down the path of becoming a full-time artist. It is 96% clown-free. This is the Untimely Death Alphabet. It was inspired in part by an artist named Edward Gorey, and I should have brought a sample of his work in here, but it's a little bare bones in the studio with other people's stuff. So, yes, you can see this is my painting gown. I'm getting ready to settle in to move some things around for the day. But the Untimely Death Alphabet, cautionary tales. Anyway, I self-published this book for the Massachusetts Independent Comic Expo, aka MICE, and it was the first convention I'd ever worked at, and there was a deadline, so I had to finish this book by that certain time too. And here we go. See, this is when I was still in Portland, Oregon, and I couldn't find, apologies, I couldn't find the tripod that I wanted. For Rachel, who fixed that sheltered teen issue. Your friends always expose you to more than your parents ever want you to be exposed to, and it's a good thing. She's the one that turned me on to Edward Gorey. So here's A. I'm really proud of A. A was one of the... I used A as logo for a while, and at some point I got some grief about how the things happening don't match the letter. Like B is for brick, that just happened to work out, but that's not honestly how I thought about it. Basically, it's really hard to get letter shapes into stories, so I just did what I could come up with. But a lot of these have a huge inspiration in various things that have happened in my life, like this. The Cask of Amontillado. That's an Edgar Allan Poe story where somebody got walled in by their enemy. C was a hard shape. So we've got the dangerous spider and the hammock. Sometimes you have to stretch reality a little bit to get it to conform to a letter shape, as in this strange creeper wave tsunami sort of thing. Some bits are very stylized. E's been very popular. People leap to it being the Grim Reaper because it's a person in a robe, but I think of this more as like the sacrifice of Aslan or something. You know, this is just a scary, culty figure in my mind. But honestly, I let people kind of think whatever they want to, because that concept works too. F. This was inspired by the cannon at Battery Park in Burlington. Even though I rendered this from 3,000 miles away when I was in Portland, I drew this, but that cannon's always been very influential in my imagination. Remember quicksand? Remember how quicksand was going to get us all? And all the cartoons when we were kids? Well, when I was a kid. And this is the only one that has a cat in it, which seems a little strange for me based on how many cats I tend to do these days. The letter H with the tentacles. This was an epiphany. So I did this book in 2 stages. Some of which, honestly, it was an art school project that I loved so much. I let it sit after I did the first third of the alphabet and went back to probably 10 years later to finish it. And it was the first really epically large serial project that I'd done. This piece probably did around the year 2000, and this was the piece I was drawing when I realized how much of my work is really self-portraiture. I was like, oh, shoot, that's me. Because that pretty much was me as a child. Sort of today, too. I, inspired by an actual event in Burlington, Vermont, although I don't think the person died, but yes, a bowling ball did fall onto someone from a second-story window. This was inspired by a Wallace and Gromit a claymation video. Not the mouse eating the gears. Some of these are a little more complex in terms of what the heck is actually going on. But the rocket in the house that got lit, and then all of a sudden the bay doors, and yeah. K. People like K. That is a mushroom. If I were redoing things, maybe I'd be more careful with my mushrooms. They tend to confuse people. I love L. I love L so much. I love the train. It's important to let the shadows just disappear into black, and sometimes it's hard to do because you want to show the whole shape. Inspired by Snidely Whiplash and the Rocky and Bullwinkle Show. The letter M is the least scary unless you don't like clowns, which is so very many of us, and then it's in some ways the most scary. That's a lollipop. Sometimes it's hard to make things look like they're supposed to look in black and white too. It's a really good challenge. Really makes you think about the light and shadow. N, Benjamin Franklin, highly stylized. O, always been into carnivorous plants, and I actually did a little animation about a Venus flytrap that used one of those old-fashioned swirl candy lollipops that nobody actually eats as a lure. P, double threat from down under. Koalas are vicious, and they'll distract you from the boomerang coming right at your head. Q, what's not to like about Q? R, only fictional? Yeah, fictitious? I would say, yep, it's the only fantasy. There we go. Only fantasy creature in the book. The croquet dragon. There you go. Sometimes it's challenging to make the stories happen. The S can confuse some people. I hope it makes sense to me, but then I drew it. Here's the guy in the submarine, but you don't really see the submarine. And the mermaid who is up to no good. T, lots of people were crucified back in the day, not just famous ones. This guy is just having a bad day. Everyone's having a bad day. No one's dead. A lot of people aren't in good shape, though. This is actually inspired from an illustration in a Dr. Seuss book when I was little. You can still find it. V. I like the line work on V, but if I were to ever redo any of this book, this is the page that confuses people the most. Poisonous mushrooms are not pointy, and you can't see that well, but he's just eating it. Anyway, like Alice in Wonderland. But yeah, the poisonous mushrooms tend to be broad, and you can't tell that that's red in black and white, which also really confuses people. One of the real challenges with letter forms is anything that puts human beings on a sort of diagonal, 45-degree angle. It doesn't work very well. So V. However, that is why I'm so ridiculously proud of W, because you've got the angles with the people. And this is one of the later pieces I did, and as I went along, this is the only one where I actually finally got like real perspective in the drawings. Mostly I was trying to step back far enough from the people so you could see all of the people making up the shapes. But with this one, yeah, her hand comes at you. So I love that one. X, old-timey card player. That's that fifth ace as his chair is tipping over. Y, I've parachuted before when I was a young adult. Probably wouldn't do it again. My fear of death is a little stronger, I suppose, or maybe I just got it out of my system. But luckily also, my parachute opened. This is the pull. Yeah, you can tell what's going on there. And for some reason, the end of the alphabet ended on the sky double whammy, because Z also is someone falling out of the sky. This person is basically Icarus. They built their wings, and that didn't work out so well. And then here's an old picture of me. And once again, my end papers. So, that is the Untimely Death Alphabet. I still have some for sale. I was doing them print on demand, so I haven't bought any in a while, but I still have a little stash. This giant field of black ink has proved to be an extreme challenge for any printer. But when it's done well, boy, is it beautiful. So that kicked off me continuing to consider books that I might publish, and just yes, I can get out in front of people and sell art to them. Thanks for being here with me.